Let's notice that the body makes contact with the chair. Let's notice that the hands are alive. Notice that breathing is happening. In fact, let's notice the entire body is one massive life. And there is something utterly mysterious happening. It's so commonplace. We fail to notice it. It's the fact of awareness. There's a breath, and there's awareness of the breath. So that means there's breathing in and knowing breathing in. There is breathing out and knowing breathing out. This is life unfolding in this moment. There may be thoughts, mood, there's no need to make an enemy of any of it. Instead, every single experience teaches us the truth of beginning and ending, here and not here. In this effortless awareness, It can be noticed that each breath comes out of nowhere. It begins with a longing or a desiring, a thirst for breathing. When you can, very gently be present with the entirety of a breath. There may well be thoughts. There could be desire, wanting, craving, grasping. There could be impatience. There could be disliking, aversion, the mind striking against the object. Not liking what's happening inside or outside. There could be restlessness, agitation, worry. There could be sloth and torpor, dullness, sleepiness. There could be doubt. There could be pride. There could be depression. There could be jealousy, confusion. We can't look directly at awareness itself, but we can look at the objects of awareness. We can know them. And this is the process of knowing that which we take to be ourself. And with this capacity to pause, to see something, to know it, and not immediately go on to the conditioned next step. Something that seems like is experienced as freedom to choose arises. In this instance, we have a kind of default choose, which is become aware and then perhaps return to breathing. Or maybe just abide in awareness. But something that's implied is, let's not get all tangled up in the thoughts. Let's not try to solve the thoughts through more thinking. Let's come home to the body in all its simplicity. No matter what arises, in this moment of formal sitting meditation, and in fact arising in our lives, see it as the dream that it is. We're always starting over. We're always starting now. Just now. Noticing fatigue, perhaps. You will probably discover that your mind, the mind of fabrications, the mind of fantasies, the mind of what it thinks of as memories, is capable of thinking and believing anything. There's a tendency in most of us to think, oh, I could never believe that, or I could never fall under the spell of that, or I'm too conscious for my political views or my social views or my relationship views to be swayed by media. And yet, time and again, ordinary people are getting radicalized in various ways. Let us sit clearly still, at least until we know our baseline, at least until we can see thoughts as thoughts, where we can know the impact of something that we're viewing or hearing or reading. So coming home to the simplicity of this breath, right now, breathing in, alive. we cultivate in ourselves awakening. We realize awakening. Time and again, we discover ourselves lost in some trance. Isn't that interesting how that happens? And then somehow or another the trance is gone and there's knowing. Many times meditators get down on themselves because there's still so much thinking. I don't know that that ever goes away. But one does come to a different relationship with it. Oh, right, there's that thinking. There's that childhood belief. There's that biased thought about some person or persons. There's that making the case. There's those stories that start and end with I, me, mine, mine. But we come to see them as natural phenomena like the seasons or baby birds hatching out or waves on a beach. Lost in the trance and then awake. And to end our sitting time this morning, I have a contemplation on here and not here. On the fact that our lives are very short and fleeting. I received an email late last night From Jeannie Mooneyham. Some of you know her. Hi, Robert. You may have heard that Clark took his last breath this afternoon. He's been living with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, for several years. His center, Dorjiling, was a mile from where I lived up on the ridge. A wonderful group to sit with. Prayers for all our teachers, Jeannie. And then an announcement from Jude Foster. Dear ones, our beloved John Paul Gyatso, Clark Hansen, passed away this afternoon at 3 p.m. He was creating a message he wanted to send out upon his death when he was hospitalized for the last time, so it remains unfinished. You will recognize his generous, loving nature in what he has drafted so far. His words are for each of us. Your friendship has invoked in me the qualities that I treasure most in my life: joy, loving kindness, generosity, and love. Your friendship has enriched and supported me in this life and has fulfilled me. I would like to apologize for any shortcomings on my part that may have adversely affected you in some way. Please know that it has not affected the love I feel for you. He also wanted to include his favorite passage from Shakespeare's As You Like It. Quote, and this our life exempt from public haunt finds tongues in trees, books in the running brook, sermons in stones, and good in everything. That was the essence of his spirit, was it not? Finding good in everything and everyone. And then there's instructions for those who would like to go and sit for a while with his body. I will post this to the listserv, to the PIMC connections list, if any of you know or knew Clark or wanted to participate. I'm going up, it's on the ridge, Skyline Ridge. Sometime this afternoon I'm going to go with Jeannie for a while. John Paul's body will be left undisturbed and alone for 24 hours in quiet and calmness, according to his specific wishes. After this period, he will be bathed and dressed in his full monastic robes, which he has not been able to wear for some time. The Dorjiling shrine room and the property will then be open to those who want to come to practice, pray, and say their farewell. All day, Sunday and Monday morning. So, it serves us so well. I'm going to go spend some time there with his body because it's always so profoundly reminding, sanity bringing. And we all know, we've all had, well, most of us probably have. The older I get, the more it's true. We've had people disappear. We've had people die. We've had relationships end. And there's nothing more potent than that for kindling compassion and love, caring, kindness. So I invite us now to bring awareness to the buttocks where they touch the chair, to the hands in their beautiful aliveness, to the face, notice the aliveness in the face. It's not even a face, is it? It's just life. And then to the region of the eyes, and then noticing the intention to open the eyes, and then the effort to open the eyes. And then the fact of seeing. And if the visual system is intact, meaning if the eye itself is healthy, functional, if there's light, if there are objects, and if there's that mysterious consciousness, then there's seeing. In this case, I encourage us to notice these mortal living people right in front of us. Seeing. Seeing. Seeing and remembering. Some would say it's a maudlin practice, a downer. To remember that the person I'm looking at is mortal, will die. I find it not that way at all. It's more, oh my, how extraordinary I get this moment. There is a frustration that I'm more and more aware of it. I experienced a big dose of it 3 years ago now, my 70th birthday. My daughter, Tara, and Jennifer, my wife, staged a birthday party, surprise birthday party. And people flew in from around the country. It was quite something. And but it was one of the more frustrating moments of my life. Because here's this person, I haven't seen you for 3 years since this retreat somewhere, and then someone else is tapping me on the shoulder. It's like, shit, I have to turn away. And it was quite painful, actually. It's like, but of course we can't spend our lives with everyone. We do. It's the truth of dukkha. Jen and I were talking about it last night. And the more the heart opens, the more love there is, the more there's like, oh, I'd like to know you better. So I'd rather live that way than closed and not noticing. What beauty. Before too long, we'll be back in the center and we'll be able to have those momentary encounters in person. That'll be really nice. It'll be at least 80 days from now, I would say, given the struggle we're having with the permits. Who knew? Announcements. Jim, do you have any announcements?
I'm going to be online on Monday night with my usual guest house with Mr. Rumi visiting. And there's a whole list of people on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday that are going to be teaching. Wednesday and Thursday, there'll be classes around 7 or 7:30. Friday, Doyle will be on at noon. And I can't remember. Candles. Well, Candles on tonight. Yes. And I think she's on other classes during the week. There's lots of things going on at PIMC.
All right. I'm going to make a make a plea for your loving support of the center. If this gathering is of service to you, if it helps you, then I encourage you to go to portlandinsight.org and find one of the links and make a contribution, make a monthly contribution. I get tired just like everybody else does. I listen to NPR a lot. And 3 times a year now, they come on and they talk your ear off. And they have all these cute ways of putting it. And sometimes tedious. But what I've noticed from actually our various fundraising attempts is it does take a lot of repetition before people actually do make contribution. When we were raising the money for the ramp, it was very clear to me. I would do something, or we as a board or something, we would do something and there'd be a little spike, and then it would go away again. Because we're so busy, and also there's so many demands on our financial resources. But take advantage of the opportunity to practice this, opening the tight hand of fear and greed, and know that what you're doing is keeping this going, keeping the broadcast going, keeping the doors of the center open when we get open again. Because there are people, there may be someone here, I see a bunch of new faces that I haven't met before. There may be someone here for whom this is their first encounter with the Dharma. And that's huge. Huge. One last little thought on that. This is several years ago, and it's someone that has since moved away. But I came back into the Dharma hall from the tea room, the living room, and there was a woman walking from one piece of art to another. And she was doing that when I left. So 20 minutes later, there she was in front of another art piece, and I walked up to her and said hello. And she was kind of starry-eyed and glowing. And I asked her, what's going on? And she said, I found my home. I came home today. I didn't know that was going to happen today. And she found her community, and it really served her well. And then business work moved her away. But that happens to a lot of people. They come and they discover, oh, here's spiritual practice I can actually do. And here's the physical place, for those who could come to the physical place. Here's a physical place that's really warm and welcoming. Speaking of which, we are moving ahead on the DEI committee, the Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Committee. The host of that committee is going to be Vic Ananta, and Danny, who's here, I think, going to be assisting in that, and Candle. And then there's other people from the community that have already expressed interest. And so they're going to be doing a process of gathering together all the information they can and looking at the resources that are out there in the world and looking at what we need and creating proposals for the board to move ahead. And we're going to move ahead as quickly as we can in months, not years. So we're responding, I think, well, beautifully, actually, to the need that's afoot in that realm. So we become welcoming, more and more welcoming. So Jim, would you like to take the helm and give a little movement mindfulness?
All right. Thank you very much. I will spotlight my camera for everyone, and I'm going to move a chair out of the way, and then we'll do some mindful movement.
Jim, FYI,
So
I
I
believe.
remember having that feeling of coming home 30 years ago now. But when I first started meditating with Robert, in some place along the line, he started talking about these 7 factors of enlightenment. And I heard this list and I thought, well, that's all doable if I just put some time in and make it happen. It gave me so much hope and so much momentum to find a place where I could start working on making tangible effort towards awakening. It's still happening. Starting again right now. Moving my weight over 1 foot, moving my weight over another foot, and just swinging back and forth and realizing how intelligent the physical organism is. You can be aware of every adjustment, every change, every minute micro movement in your joints and your ligaments and bones aligning. We can stand and sway. We can move in a circle and be aware of how that's a different feeling, different sensations. Both sensations are massaging the feet, but this is a little more interesting. A circle, one direction, then the other. When I first started doing mindful movement on Duke Street at the center, I shared this 18-step Shibashi Qigong routine, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to do two or three from the 18 and just sink and lift and notice how there's awareness of movement in the shoulders, in the elbows, in the wrists, in the knees, and the breathing. We can deliberately coordinate the breath in and the breath out. So movement of the whole skeleton and the breath get united. And there's a soothing, healing feeling in the body. That comes about when you allow the energy to flow from the heart out to the fingertips, from the heart down to the toes. Just following every little adjustment. From the side, you can see I'm kind of extending my arms, bending my wrists, bending my elbows. Every movement naturally flowing into the next. Make a round movement that soothes the nervous system. We're under so much attack from the chaos around us on the media, sometimes in our immediate surroundings. What if we sunk down and lifted the arms up and then opened them and paid attention? How does that feel in the chest, in the rib cage, in those tiny little muscles between the bony ribs? Again, coordinating with the breath. Long exhale, releasing tension, releasing stress. sensations of opening and releasing. The awareness can be really specific and precise. What are the shoulder blades doing when you sink, rise, and open? Return to the center and sink. Or you can just feel the whole body, a global appreciation, affection for the smoothness and the lubrication and the calming of slow movement. And then reaching overhead, new movement, clear stretching over to one side, balancing with weight out over to the side, compensating with the hips. The hips know what the hands are doing, the hands know what the hips are doing. How does that happen? How does that get coordinated? You just get a little suggestion from a body in a screen, and then immediately your body knows exactly how to flow in the same way. Releasing, coming to stillness, noticing that the river of sensation does not stop when the gesture pauses. No more reaching, just letting gravity receive the length of your arms. Aware of relaxation in the shoulders, in the jaw, in the neck, but a strong back holding the whole torso alert and aware, a soft belly expanding and contracting, allowing new energy in, releasing what we don't need. And then sinking again and opening to the side. Come down the center and release the tension and stress, opening to new energy, breathing in, releasing. Staying with sensations, opening, reaching, releasing. And then coming to stillness again, notice what are the predominant sensations now. And for me, the predominant feeling is gratitude. I bring my hands together, thankful for another opportunity to be with you and to move together and to become aware of this amazing, balanced, alive body. It's going to sit down with alertness and attention and listen to a Dharma talk. Thank you very much.
How's my sound, Jim?
I think it's fine.
Great. Thank you. You just never know what the mind will think about, do you? I was in the kitchen while Jim was doing the movement, getting a little water. And I was thinking about the number of people that have come through PIMC over the years. When we've been in person, I have done what's it called? An introduction to meditation. The first Sunday of the month at 9:00. So there's 12 of those a year, and I really like doing it. I certainly could. The other teachers have done it, of course, in my absence, but I really like meeting the newcomers. And often there's as many as, I guess there's often as many as 15, maybe more. So there's a lot of seeking that's going on in the world. And then I encourage people to stay and participate in the morning, maybe stay for tea. And then the reality is that most people don't stick. Right? It's not exactly the right thing for them, or it's not at all the right thing for them. And then there are the others like Jim, who stick around for 30 years, or Doug Pullen, it's even longer. We met when I was 27, and my then wife and I took 25 students of Lewis and Clark students to India for 5 months. And Doug and I connected, and we've been colleagues ever since. I hired him at the Janus Youth Programs that he then, over the years, became clinical director. So anyway. So I'm going to share with you a very, I think, important set of ideas. Very central Buddhist ideas. And it's around the issue of choice. Choice and free will. And I think I want to start like this. And maybe we can do it with a show of hands. It's always fun to do this in person, but please raise your hand if you're willing. If you have any addictions or compulsions or behaviors that you know you'd be better off if you stopped doing it, but you continue doing it. Joshua raises 2 hands. Nice shades, man. So, do that again. Raise your hand again, if you will. Look at that. What's wrong with you? Why don't you stop it? Speaking of that, if you've never seen it on YouTube, there's a hilarious skit by Bob Newhart with, there's a rather famous actress that he does it with. It's I think it's called Stop It. And it's his psychiatrist, his methodology for how to stop compulsive behavior, which is funny. I won't tell you anymore. So, why don't you stop it? So many things happen, and we don't even know we're about to do them. And we only notice we've done them after we've done them. We think things, we imagine things, we speak things, we email things, we text things, and we act physically. And it's only after the fact that we realize, wait, I wasn't going to do that again. So there's a powerful line from Carl Jung. He didn't teach mindfulness, but he taught practices for awakening to what's true in the mind. And he said that once we start to awaken, and this is certainly true with the Dharma, once we start to awaken, we're stepping out of the track of the fate of our life. That we were deeply, deeply conditioned as humans, as mammals, and as children. And if we don't intervene, we will live out a fate, which is the way we were fired out in a ballistic curve almost out of the conditioning of our life. And we'll just go on and we do the same thing and the same thing until we die. However, if we begin to examine our thoughts, feelings, reactions, body, feelings, mental formations, consciousness, we start making decisions, which then they're like mid-course corrections, and we wind up living out a destiny rather than a fate. When I look back at this life of mine, this life that I take ownership of, how did little Bobby Beatty of Lachine, Quebec, from that very dysfunctional, alcoholic, agoraphobic, unhappy family, wind up deeply committed to the Buddhist teachings and living in Portland, Oregon? There were a lot of decisions. There was one monumental decision when I had decided, I was very fused with my mother and my girlfriend, and I decided I'd graduated from college, I'd worked on the trains, commuter trains for a year, but I had this idea I wanted to go to Australia. And I remember when I met the fellow who suggested that I could work on a ship and go to Australia. And anyway, I went down to there was a ship in port in Montreal. I went down and talked to the captain. He said, "Yeah, we're leaving Friday. You can work as a mess boy, and you can go to Australia. We'll pay you $1, and then you can get off in Australia." I went home and told my parents, and I've been talking about this, and they were aghast. And then I had 3 more days to work, and the next day, there was a gentleman with whom I'd been speaking every day at the beginning of the run from 40 miles outside of Montreal in. I talked with him every morning, and I told him what my plan was, and he said, "Oh, no, I've been meaning to talk to you." And he pulled out a card and said, "Please come and talk to me in my office." And he was a vice president of Canadian Pacific Industries. And he said, "I've been meaning to offer you a job." And it's when you talk about the money, it was $8,000 a year. Whoa. And it was, but I would have had a car, and I would have been in Halifax, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Vancouver, each for a year in training. And I told my father that I was choosing to go to Australia, and he freaked out because he in the Depression, when he went to work, he was a paper boy. He couldn't leave home at that age. So anyway, I went. That was a momentous decision. Who knows whether I would have run into the Dharma. So, decisions matter. And let me now get on to the core of this, otherwise I won't have enough time. It's going to take me a little fiddling. I want to do, hang on, this. Oh boy, is this going to work? Let's try this. This, share screen. Let me look here. I've got a monitor I can look at to see what I got.
Looks good.
Does it? Oh, good.
You want the right hand upper corner.
I want the what?
Right hand upper corner
What does that mean?
of the Paticca.
Oh, yeah. That's. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Now let me see if I can get the Facebook crowd on the same page, so to speak. Here we go. All right. Ta-da! Fantastic. I think it's working. Thank you, Jim. Now, this is something called the 12 Steps of Dependent Origination. And the Buddha said that his awakening came at the moment that he understood this. Paticca Samuppada. This is a painting on cloth, kind of a stiff cloth, which is on the wall of my office. And it's on the wall of my office because it's beautiful, but also because it's the underpinning of my entire Buddhism and psychotherapy work. So I could take a couple of hours to go through this, but there's right down here, there's something that I want to talk about. But to orient you, up here, when we'll go through all these pictures, this is Avalokiteshvara, the founding archetypal figure of Tibetan Buddhism. This is Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddha of our time, of our Buddha, the Buddha who brought the Dharma to life. This is Yama, the Lord of Death. And this is often called the Wheel of Life, the Wheel of Birth and Death. And as long as we are ignorant, they say, we continue and keep acting in certain programmed ways. We keep going around and around the circle of birth, sickness, old age, decay, death, birth, sickness, old age, decay, death. These skulls are smiling because they got it and they became liberated. In here, and I'm going to try to be mindful now. I'm going to slow down a little bit. I don't have to hurry. There's an unconscious anxiety hurrying that I commonly do. Whoops, it went back to this first slide. Now, so then this first layer, these are what are known as the 12 steps of dependent origination. And I'll go through them one at a time. It starts here with a blind person and then a woman making pots or muumuus. There's a monkey, rebirth linking consciousness. There's this little boat, a coracle, that I'll come to. There's the 6 sense doors. There's contact. There's feeling. There's craving, grasping, craving. And then here's grasping. And then there's becoming. And then there's birth. And there's sickness, old age, lamentation, death, and despair. And around we go again. And then in here, which we will not come to today, are the 6 realms. This is the heaven realm, in which everything's great for a long time. Whoop, go back. This is the realm of the jealous gods fighting to get back into power. We recognize both of these in Washington and in our own hearts. The Tibetans and many Buddhists think of these as actual places. I tend to think of them as mental states, which are as effectively places because we inhabit them. Then this is the animal. Oh, geez. This is the animal realm where the instincts rule. I'm not sure why that keeps changing. This is the hell realms, which we won't see them today particularly. This is the realm of the hungry ghost. You can see here a tiny neck, a biggish mouth, and a big stomach. It's the realm of the mall. Hang on. And then this is the human realm where our life happens. And then in here we have beings who are becoming more and more unconscious, and they're being dragged down by a demon into the hell realms. And there are beings who are listening to the teachings of the Buddha and who are becoming more and more awake and free. There is an artistic license that the author of the painter of this did, which I kind of wish I'd known about at the time, because I might have purchased a different tanka, but I can explain it. You see this rainbow here, this little rainbow. In traditional tankas, these Buddha figures, there's a Buddha in every realm, you'll notice. And these Buddha figures are in a little circle here, and there's always a rainbow going to them. And the message in that is that no matter what realm one is in, the Buddha and awakening are always right there. It's not far away. It's just a matter of awakening to the illusory nature of all of this. And then there's these beings being pulled down and beings coming upwards into greater and greater functionality and loving and awakeness. Most of my professional life, most of my adult life, has been working with people who are getting more and more healthy. That's how the meditation is very much a part of it. I have met a few people in my lifetime whose lives were falling apart and who were, in some cases, acting very unskillfully, addictions and some unethical things, and their lives were becoming more and more hell-like. But our aspiration, as I understand it, and the aspiration of PIMC, the mission of PIMC is to assist those people who are in such a karmic circumstance that they can and do want to awaken. Okay. I'm going to go on. And I'm sorry, this is going to be fast and superficial. This exists, I believe this is on my blog and all these pictures. I think I got that up there. I'll check. Oh dear, I said I'd put something on my blog yesterday. Friday. Jim, do you remember what it was? There were two things. Let's deal with it after. Okay. So this is Aviloka. And look at the detail in this. This is maybe 3 times the size of what it actually is on the tanka. Avalokiteshvara with his wish-fulfilling jewel, with his mantra, and his mantra is Om Mani Padme Hum. And he's bringing compassion, wishing compassion for all beings. And this is Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddha of our time. Yama, the Lord of Death. And you see here, this is right at the top of the circle. And so we're going to zoom in on this one here. A blind person, ignorant of reality. This ignorance conditions the next step, which is doing things. This woman is usually making pots, and it's symbolic of karmic activity. Through ignorance, we act. And then the model, there's layers and layers of it that I'm going to skip here. And so here's the dynamic model. From one moment to the next, there is a leaping of consciousness from one moment to the next. They call it rebirth linking consciousness. Because of consciousness, mind and matter occur. And in this, I think of the utter bizarre mystery of a baby being born from an egg and a sperm and consciousness. And this is a coracle. It's a leather boat. And we get born into a skin boat. And that being born into the skin boat means we're born into the six senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the feeling body, and the mind. And at these six senses, that's all we experience. We have these sensory experiences. Each sense contact, when the eye comes into contact with a visual object, there's contact. And this is the racy scene in the 12 Steps of Dependent Origination. Because of the six sense doors, there is contact. Because of a nose and olfactory particles or chemicals, there's smell. Conditioned by or because of contact is feeling. And this drawing is not quite true to life, true to history anyway. Usually this arrow is in the person's eye. And feeling is defined in a very particular way, a very special way, actually. When the eye falls on a pleasant object, the feeling is pleasant. When the eye falls on an unpleasant object, the feeling is unpleasant. When the nose smells baking bread or vaporized fat, these are very deeply conditioned into us for survival. And one of them is very delicious. Well, both of those are very delicious. I just went off on a whole memory train. When I was in my, after Australia, I worked on ships to Dunkirk in France. And then I lived in Switzerland for 2 years. 1 year as a ski patrolman and 1 year doing blood research. And we were taking blood from pregnant women and trying to, the 1 in 600 of the lymphocytes in a woman's blood at 12 weeks is from the baby. And we were trying to figure out how to kill the mother's lymphocytes and keep the baby's ones alive. And so we used all kinds of toxic substances. And among them was something called putrescine. And putrescine is the essence, the concentrated essence of rotting flesh. One drop in a lab made it just almost unbearable to be in there. So we're deeply conditioned that the smell of putrefying flesh, dead meat, is very negative to us. We have a strong disliking. It's conditioned response. So all of that to say that contact, we have contacts, and the contact then conditions a feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, or not yet decided, indeterminate. Then this feeling, if not observed carefully, feeling conditions craving, wanting. And this is a man with an alcoholic drink of some kind, usually. And it's craving, it's I want, or I don't want. It goes either way. So because of contact, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, there is the impulse, in a way, the motivation toward grasping. And this is very natural as a living being. Because of grasping, because of craving, rather, there is grasping. We actually move toward the object of desire, or push away the object of disliking, or basically fall asleep if the feeling is very neutral. So then there's this impulse wanting, and then if we act, there's birth. This is actually a poorly drawn piece of the drawing that she should be, that's the next one. She should be pregnant. She is pregnant in this drawing. So birth, we've acted, and there's that saying, you can't be sort of pregnant or part pregnant. One has acted, and that reality is here, or at least it's in its gestational moment. And then there's birth. I love this particular picture. These fingers are really something, aren't they? There's birth, and several times I've had women comment that this is clearly not a woman who gave birth. She's so blissed out in it. So anyway, there's birth, and then once there's birth, there is sickness, old age, death, lamentation, and despair. And then we go around and around the cycle. So, back to here. And this is the point I really wanted to get to. And I'm going to stop and breathe for just a minute. Take a drink. Choice. Oops, wrong way. Let's say a nasty email comes in. You read it, and you have contact. It's a mental contact, a visual contact. You have contact with the contents of that email. And let's say it's unpleasant. And let's say it sets off some childhood sense of it's not fair, or anger or terror or something. Unobserved, that leads to, I want to do something. I want to protect myself. I want to write back. And then we can very quickly get on to, I'm going to do it. And then we've decided, and then we have sent an email that's going to have unpleasant karmic repercussions. We've thrown gas on the fire, for instance. Let's say we have a friend or a child or a partner, and they communicate. Let's say it's in person. We have contact with them, and they tell us a story about how they're in pain. And maybe it's not particularly about you. It's just an honest sharing between people of the pain that this person is experiencing through let's say, the end of a relationship, or the loss of something, or a failure of some kind. Oops. This can create, let's say it creates a feeling of empathy and compassion. And there's an impulse to spend more time, to pay attention more deeply, to practice empathic listening. And then one is mindful enough to be able to say, yes, I can do this. There's no boundary violation in this. There's no way it'll do any harm. And so then one decides, I'm going to grasp, I'm going to act and be this empathic person that I can be. And we then are born, one could say, in the next moment, we are born as a person who chose to be to express empathy and compassion. So this point here between contact and feeling, the wheel up until this point is understood to be fixed. We can't do anything about what's happening in our conditioning to this point. But with mindfulness, we can start to be aware of this point right here with the feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral or indeterminate. We can definitely be aware of the intention of the wanting to act. And we can then be aware of the intention and then putting the act in motion and becoming a person who has done that action. Now, I don't know about multiple births, rebirth. I do know, however, that I can be born as a generous person, as a selfish person, as an irritable person, as a kind person, as a person with various neurotic patterns, and also stepping out of certain neurotic patterns. It all happens. This is where mindfulness is so extraordinarily potent. It happens right here, between contact, feeling, and then feeling. Right here, to notice feeling. Sometimes when I talk about this, I remember a long time ago when I was first studying nonviolent communication. And I was very clunky at it. But I was in a relationship where we were having a lot of conflict, a lot of verbal conflict. And it never really got fully resolved, and we separated ultimately. But there was a day, and it was a very particular moment, when she said something. Oh, the other way. She said something. There was contact at the ear and the mind for understanding. She said something that was very painful. And the impulse, the conditioned response, was to get my guard up and then to say something very painful back. But something really different happened, because I'd been studying nonviolent communication and been doing my own therapy work and so on. But there was enough time somehow that, and I was also meditating on feelings, on pleasant, unpleasant, and indeterminate feelings. And something really different happened. I went quiet. And what came out of my mouth? There was an opportunity, with noticing the feeling, another impulse arose, going back here now, there was another thread of consciousness, and the contact with that was very comforting and pleasant. And the craving, the desire that arose in that second channel it resulted in me saying, "Ow, that hurt." I was born as a person who would be vulnerable, who would not fire back, who would then be able to continue around the cycle, but not as a person who was engaged in conflict, but as a person who was actually communicating with love. Now, I want to open up and ask for questions and comments momentarily, but there's one other piece to this that I think is very important. The Buddha attributed his understanding of this 12 steps of dependent origination as what set him free. Now, why would that be? And one way to describe it happens here with this process I'm suggesting. This step conditions this step. This step conditions this step. This step conditions this step, and so on. If I were to stop, if I were to notice feeling and craving, and then do nothing, all the rest of the steps in the circle are gone. There is no continuity. There is quenching. There is stopping. There's another, if I go back around the circle here, This ignorance fuels the whole thing. Believing we can find something permanent in life. Living the true great lie, which is that I'm going to live forever. So are my loved ones. The ignorance that the self is actually a phantom. And that's a big mouthful. But as we study, as we get it, as we experience more and more times the possibility of, here's a feeling, here's a wanting to act, but I don't have to. Life begins to be much more calm, and we begin to be able to make choices. We still are going around the wheel plenty of times, as a metaphor, but we start shaping the kind of person that we are. I have hateful thoughts, but I'm going to try not to express those hateful thoughts. Doesn't mean we have to stop them. Probably can't. I have obsessive thoughts. I have impulses to do harm. Well, the more mindfulness we have, and the more we're capable of what in some circles, I think Tara Brach popularized it, it's right here that we do the sacred pause. Rather than being reactive, we begin to have some sense of choice. And it's as though the present moment is teased open. So that there's a line, a beautiful line. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And we can make that space. That space can experientially grow and grow and grow. So we really experience it as we experience our lives as becoming more and more manageable, because here's this impulse to do, say, act, think this. But, I think I won't. And we discover that we survive, or maybe more than we survive, we thrive. Because we stop making messes, we stop making new messes, and we start creating the possibility of greater connectivity with ourselves and with each other. So, I forgot one piece of the diagram. I'm gonna take us around the circle and go in to do that. So here we have the heaven realms, the realm of the gods, where everything's coming together nicely. Oh, here it is again. And then we have the realm of the hungry ghosts, always fighting to get the jealous gods, trying to get back into power. Here we have the animal realm, where instincts prevail. And this is a colorful one, the hell realms. And, we don't have to think of Dante's hell. Just think of the last time your heart was really broken, or you felt betrayed, or you got really caught up in some ideology. That's the hell realms. Then there's the realm of the hungry ghosts, always wanting more, which whenever I talk about this, I think of Robert Bly saying that over the entrance to every mall, there should be a sign that says you can never get enough of what you don't really want. That's that hungry ghost feeling. And then we have the human realm, birth, sickness, old age, decay, death, and the possibility of learning. And then here we have beings on their way down and beings on their way up. And then in the middle, there's a rooster, a pig, and a snake, which are understood. I talked about this in a Dharma talk recently. They're understood to be the roots of suffering. The wanting, I want, I don't want, and I'm not going to pay attention. Ignorance, greed, hatred, and ignorance. And they're what run the entirety of the samsara, this dance of birth and death. And it's through the illumination of them and the recognition that they don't have to be the driving forces in my life. In fact, they can become, instead of greed, hatred, and ignorance, they can become non-greed, non-hatred, and wisdom. Generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. So let me see if I can do this. How do I do it? I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to change this. Oops. There we go. I think I'm pulling it off here. All right. So this is, of course, a model. And as we know, but we sometimes forget, the map is not the territory. This is a set of concepts that we can use to think about this. How do I shape my destiny? And I also want to say this in terms of a bigger context again. Some people find this kind of Dharma talk really encouraging and inspiring. Others don't get it or are totally disinterested in this kind of intellectual presentation. And that's just how it is. We all learn different ways, and this is just a map. It's just a way that it's been useful to me. And it's very traditional Buddhist doctrine. And there's just a story that when I speak of this, it always pops to mind. It's the two brothers. Two brothers go to the Buddha, and the Buddha gives a talk. Maybe it's dependent origination, but much more erudite and thorough than this. And one of the brothers in the middle of the Dharma talk goes, "Whoa, I get it." And he has a huge liberation experience. The other brother, who didn't go to Harvard, who never was intellectually particularly gifted, but who, anyway, he went to the Buddha and said, I'm going to quit practicing because I don't even understand this talk. And the Buddha said, don't worry, come back tomorrow morning and I'll give you a special practice just for you. So he comes back in the morning and the Buddha has a flower and he hands it to him and he says, here, watch this flower closely all day. When your mind wanders, come back to this flower. And sometime around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, as the flower is wilting away, the brother lights up and says, oh, I get it. So the insight, the intuitive understanding can come to us in many, many different ways. And this 12 Steps of Dependent Origination is one that is, for some people, particularly useful. So with that, I would like to ask you if you have any questions or things you would like to share, and we have about 10 minutes. Lovely to see you.
Robert, Joshua here.
Hello, Joshua.
I'm not assuming the personality of Neo. I had a little eye surgery, so I'm just keeping it covered for now. It all went fine. So, yeah, that's why the shades today.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Thanks for the talk. I really enjoyed going through that talk. I've always looked at that, and and really appreciated it. Was just had a question about the ignorance that begins at the beginning of those 12 links right there, and the kinds of ignorance we're talking about, or is it situational? Is there an overriding ignorance? Just a little more about that.
I understand it to be the ignorance of believing that that I am, and I'm in charge of my life, and I'm going to die, or the ignorance is more the opposite of that. It's there's the three characteristics of existence that are so central in the Buddhist teachings. The first one is impermanence, and we tend to have a lot of ignorance. It's a verb too. We have a lot of ignorance of impermanence. We act as though we can create something permanent. We act as though we could build something and defend it, and we can't. Similarly, we act. Last night, I acted as though I could overeat and feel good about it, and that it was a good thing to do. How many times, I am 73 years old, how many times have I eaten to discomfort and then felt crappy afterwards? I mean, that's if I were to go to my judgmental side, I would say, that's really stupid, Robert. But that's not the right term. It's ignorant. It's ignorant. I could have eaten. It's like I wasn't eating to satisfy hunger. I was eating to satisfy something else, and it's never worked yet. And I don't know who knows. And sometimes I get it. It's like, okay, I'll have a little bit of this. Oh, that's enough. But I get ignorant. I not to get too far lost in that silly example, but will anything you do through the sense doors ever really result in satisfaction? And to not know that is to be ignorant, because it won't. Nothing ever does. Doesn't mean it isn't worth doing lots of things, but we're not going to come to that place of, I've arrived. And then the jewel at the heart of the Buddhist teachings, the anatta, not soul, not enduring self, that we are ignorant, I am ignorant, of the fact that that's true. And with wisdom, that becomes obvious. And ignorance is dispelled. To know that having sensory experiences is not really going to result in the end of the dukkha, of the suffering, then can lower the desperation with which we chase after certain experiences. Because we realize, well, nice as that would be, it's really not going to do it. Which doesn't mean we don't go after desirable experiences, but it's when we can't achieve the desirable experience, how much do we suffer? I would bet you're suffering a little bit with your distance from Chicago.
Definitely.
And I know what that's like. So there she is. She's over there in Chicago. You're here. And you'd like that experience of her being here, damn it. And she's not. And it's not permanent. She's here, and then she may have to go back. I don't know what the story is, but so to develop a capacity of happiness and acceptance, realizing, oh, right, this is a human relationship. This is utterly unstable. So therefore, I'm not going to torture myself. I'm not going to suffer so much over this, because I know it's the way it is. It's the way things are. You know, way back when, 79, when I spent a week with Tongpulu Sayadaw in Rangoon, and and I sat in the interview room. All he did from 8:30 in the morning with an hour break at lunch till 9 o'clock at night is he sat, and he was 82 years old. He sat with the people of Rangoon, and they came in ones and twos and fives and groups, and he would counsel them. And one of them, he did that 7 days a week for 3 months in Rangoon. But one of the women came in and she was sobbing, and my translator translated it for me, that her husband had been, he'd been transferred to some other city in the bank with his bank. And it had been 2 years or 3 years already, and they had just gotten word that he wasn't going to be transferred back. And she was crushed, well, reasonably. And this is not an unusual human circumstance. So how much do I suffer with? You know, you come around the wheel and you get to the contact with that reality, and you can, there's the natural suffering of the missing, but then we can add on so much more overhead, which is it shouldn't be like this, and you know why, and we can create tremendous suffering. So the dispelling of ignorance is the dispelling of suffering. That got a little wordy. I hope it made sense.
Thank you. It was wonderful. I appreciate it.
Let me put this out. Does anyone remember the two things I was going to put on my blog yesterday or Friday? I think I can find the poem, but...
Robert, it's Jessica.
Hi, Jessica.
The Wayne Dyer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's just one. I can't remember the other.
Right. Thank you.
I think the other one was the Emerson quote.
Was it?
that Friday?
It was in the past. I know that. But I think I can find the Wayne Dyer quote. Thank you.
We're talking about self-reliance or self-determination, and you quoted
that would be the Emerson quote
at the beginning.
Okay. Oh, there's something that I have not been remembering to mention for a long time, which is that one of the things that PIMC offers, and all the teachers have banded together to offer this, is that if you want a half-hour conversation about your meditation practice, we call it a Dharma Consult. You can contact Avi at portlandinsight.org or get the phone number off the net, and ask him to set you up a meeting with one of the teachers. If you have a particular teacher you'd like to meet with, you can specify them, and we'll do our best for that to happen. It's really useful. It's very useful to have someone to talk to, even for a short time, like a half hour. Because sometimes we're kind of barking up the wrong tree, and we can be redirected, and it's like, no, down, over that way, and things will be much clarified. And there's no charge for that, so it's included. It's included in your monthly contribution. That was slick, wasn't it? Well, dear ones, I am longing. I just had an image of the garden and a few things I need to do there this morning or this afternoon. And so I'm thinking there's nothing morally and ethically wrong with that. And it's not hugely, it's actually positive for the environment. And the extra food that we grow, we're so lucky we have a food pantry about 2 miles away that anything extra we get to give away, and that's fun. So I have a grasping, a desiring to do that. And so I'm letting the intention form, and when we're finished, I'm going to go do that. So there's a nice example of I'm choosing for my life to become that of a gardener. I'm going to be reborn for an hour or so as a person who gets his hands in the dirt. Seeds. Have you ever thought about seeds? They're so weird. This little tiny thing, you put it in the ground, and often it puts up this little tiny sprout, it gets a little sun, and then it goes, and it makes more seeds. Millions sometimes. That's bizarre. It also feeds us along the way. Very strange and miraculous. So, let's go out with a song. Let's do the Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam, the proper Buddhist way. Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam, which means may all beings receive all blessings, the blessings of compassion and love and awakening. So it's 3 times, and then we'll also do sadhu, which means may it be thus, or it's like the Theravadan Buddhist amen. And unmute if you wish, and we can have some cacophonous playfulness. Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, That's fun. Oh, gone. Lovely.
You sound fantastic.
Sadhu,
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Goodbye, dear friends.
Thank you, Robert.
Hello,
Thank
Terry
you, Robert.
and Will.
Thank you, Robert. Have a wonderful day, son.
Everybody.
Yes,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
You should.
Are you safe, Roseanne? Is that dog going to eat you?
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
Yes, I may be consumed for their dinner tonight, but we'll see.
Lovely to see you. Goodbye, Lou and Pat and Greg and Jim. Thanks for being here. And Jonah. See you soon.
Take care.
Beautiful day, everybody.
Here we go.